Hey guys, my name's Massimo and we have my 2013 Mustang GT back here today, but I did a little mod to this guy. I installed KOOKS Longtube headers and I paired that with KOOKS midpipe with high flow race cats and an H-pipe. So I'm going to talk about that and what I think about the Longtube headers today, how the installation went, and I'm going to let you guys hear it, and I think you're really going to like how this guy sounds now. So let's get into the details a little bit. So I did KOOKS Longtube headers. Like I said, I went with the 1 3/4 inch size. That is because I think I'm staying NA on this guy. I don't plan on going supercharged or turboed anytime soon, if at all. So I did end up going with the 1 3/4 setup because that is actually better for an NA setup. It's going to let your engine breathe a little bit better when you're not at those higher power levels. It's going to create more low-end torque, more low-end horsepower, and better power throughout the whole power curve. So that's why I went with that size. And I also went with KOOKS H-pipe and not their X-pipe because I really want to minimize rasp as much as I possibly can. Now I paired the KOOKS Longtube with a resonator delete and the Corsa Sport axle back. Both of those I had before the Longtubes, but I really like the way it sounds with these Corsa Sports. I think you're really going to like it when you hear it. Now let's remember, the KOOKS Longtube headers is not a true Longtube. It's actually a mid-length header, so the cut is a little bit higher than a typical long tube header. It's not a true long tube, but it is still considered a long tube header because it's definitely not a shorty header. It's much longer than a shorty. So obviously I know you guys are waiting to hear what it sounds like, so let's cut to that and see what this guy sounds like. So as you can see from those sound clips, the car sounds super rowdy now. It's super loud, and I honestly love the tone and I love the volume. I think the Longtube headers did wonders. But let's talk about the installation of these guys. So the reason I ended up getting Longtube headers was, unfortunately, I was coming back from Colorado from a grid life event, a racetrack event, and there was a huge boulder in the road down here in Arizona, and I had no time to veer off to the other lane because there was a car next to me and I had to go right over it. Luckily, nothing cosmetic got damaged, the lip is fine and all of that, but the exhaust did get absolutely screwed up. The mid-pipe was destroyed, all dented in. It was basically flat, and the manifold got dented. And I was going to do these Longtube headers anyway down the road, so I figured, what better time to do them than right now? So that's why I picked up the Longtube headers. I had them shipped to me within a day, I think, from Beefcake Racing, so big shout out to them. And I ended up installing them. The install took 4 nights on jack stands, basically after work every night. I just worked on the car until about 9-10 p.m. and banged this out. Tried to get it all done. The install wasn't too bad. You basically just have to remove the mid-pipe, the motor mounts, the starter, raise the motor, and then you have to get those old manifolds out, get those bolts out, and get the new headers in, and then reinstall all that stuff back up. But the fitment of the KOOKS headers was really, really nice. It fit perfectly. It slipped right in between the engine and the frame really nicely. The steering shaft is far. It's not going to hit the headers at all. The headers are not close to the frame at all. Really good quality headers. That's why I bought the KOOKS. That's why I went with the KOOKS, because of their quality and their fitment. And it definitely lived up to its standards. I love how they installed, and it was honestly super easy compared to some of the lower quality header brands that are out there. I would definitely say, if you're looking at picking up headers, spend the money, get the right ones. You're going to thank yourself when you're installing them, and even when you have them on the car for a couple years. So these KOOKS headers are 304 stainless steel, which is pretty much the best stainless steel you can get on a header. Now, I could have went a step further and got them coated with something like Swain Tech or something like that, which would really keep the underhood temps down, which ideally I would have done, but I really didn't have the time to get them coated. I just had to get them on the car so I can start driving this thing again, because it is my only car. So I really didn't have the time to get them coated, unfortunately. All that would do is really keep underhood temps down a lot more than having them not coated, and it would probably last a little bit longer, but really I don't have any concerns about the headers not lasting or anything like that. So I didn't get them coated. I decided it wasn't worth it and just slapped them on the car. Now moving on from installation to really how much I like the headers. The previous setup was just stock manifolds with high flow race cats and an X-pipe. That was all installed before I got the car, and the car was pretty loud before. But Now with this new exhaust, it is super loud. You're really just opening up that airway from the engine for the exhaust to just transfer all that noise out. And it's really, really loud. Now it sounds good, there is a good tone, but it is a little bit more raspy than before with the previous setup. And that's considering I have an H pipe now versus an X pipe before. It really shows how much you're opening that airway for how much more sound is able to get through the exhaust. Now, that being said, at lower RPMs, honestly, this car is still so quiet. And at idle, it's even quieter. And that is thanks to the Corsa Sports. Those mufflers are just so good. The no drone technology they use in them, it's so good. Like, it's so quiet at lower RPMs, and that is still one of my favorite things about the car, that you're able to do that and drive through neighborhoods without bothering everyone around you. I really appreciate that I still have that ability. But of course, you step on it anywhere between 25 to 50% throttle, it's really, really loud. And then wide open throttle, you're hurting feelings passing people. It's just insanely loud how crazy it is at wide open throttle. But that's just what you're gonna get with long tube headers. Unless you're gonna put a really restrictive muffler on there or some heavy resonators, you're gonna get that crazy, crazy loud sound from long tube headers because that airway just really opens up. Now the typical dyno graph for before headers and after headers for these headers usually shows somewhere between 15 to 20 horsepower and torque gain across the curve. That's really good, and I would say my car is producing about that, 15 to 20 horsepower and 15 to 20 torque gains on these new headers. You definitely feel it while you're driving at wide open throttle and just in regular pulls. At the same time of installing these headers, right after I swapped the Bama tune for a Lund tune, just wanted to get away from Bama, and I ended up putting Lund on it, and the car feels a lot better with Lund too. I would say there's probably a 25 to 30 horsepower increase just from the headers and the tune. The car feels a lot more powerful. It gets up and goes a lot better. There's a noticeable power increase from the butt dyno, of course, and a noticeable difference in low-end torque when past people on the highway and things like that. I really don't have to downshift from 6th gear anymore to pass people, which is super, super nice. So I would say the car really gets up and goes, and if you're looking for the power and torque gain from headers, especially these KOOKS headers, go for it. Totally worth it. So wrapping up here, if you're on the fence about getting long tube headers for your 5.0, I think you already know my answer, but I love the headers. I love the sound and volume it gave off, even if it is a little bit loud. And really, the install wasn't that bad at all. If you're planning on installing them at your house, on jack stands, or if you have a lift, even better. Definitely do it on a lift. But if you're doing it on jack stands, it's not as bad as people say it is. It's definitely time consuming, and have some patience with it, but you'll be good to go. And I love the power and torque it gave me. There's so much power and so much torque just to gain from these things, and totally worth the money. Yeah, they're a little expensive, but if you're gonna have the car for a long time and you're really gonna use that power and torque, I say go for it. So anyways, that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoy this type of content with Mustangs, you know, build stuff, parts I'm putting on, install videos, definitely check out my channel. I have a lot more videos like this, but that's gonna be it for this one. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.